Ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It is time to rank the top 12 defenses for Week 1 fantasy football. I am so excited for this week, and I'm doing everything I can to get us all prepared, including defenses. And I'm one of the only fantasy football YouTubers who does weekly defense rankings. So please go down there, drop a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. So starting out with our first tier here, the Bengals versus the New England Patriots. This is the defense that you want. So with the Bengals defense, I don't think that there's some elite roster. I think that this Trey Hendrickson situation on the edge is not exactly ideal. Sam Hubbard is good, but really their defense is kind of just a collection of guys that I think are talented, but really haven't put it all together for a great full season. With the New England Patriots, they have an opportunity, a prime opportunity to start out strong in Week 1. So with the New England Patriots, I think they're going to be one of the most miserably bad teams this season, and I think it all begins with their bad offense. With this Drake May, Jacoby Brissett situation, their quarterback situation is a mess. And obviously, their weapons are just not fantastic either. So the Bengals defense, I think, comes out immediately strong this week, and I think have a really decent chance of causing a couple turnovers in this game. Now, the Falcons defense, if you can't get the Bengals, also a really good play as well this week. Versus the Pittsburgh Steelers this week in Atlanta, and I think the Falcons have the second best matchup. And I also think the Falcons defense is probably better than the Cincinnati Bengals will be this year. So obviously they get Matthew Judon in a trade from the Patriots just a couple weeks ago. He's coming in. He's ready to go right out of the gate. Jesse Bates on that back end of the defense, I think is in great position to get a turnover versus Russell Wilson this week as well. So with the Steelers offense, at most, I think they get like 16 points in this game, and that's being generous. Honestly, they couldn't move the ball during the preseason against backups. Against backups, the Steelers starting 11 couldn't move the ball. So the Steelers offense is going to be bad this year. It starts Week 1 against the Falcons, and the Falcons, I think, not only hold them to very few points, but they also get a turnover or two at the very minimum. Now, the Chargers defense is at number 3, and they're taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. So I say this every single year, and it's always worth noting because it never fails to surprise us. Divisional matchups are harder to predict in fantasy football and just in general NFL terms because these teams know each other so well. Now, these two particular teams, it's unique. They're obviously both coming in with new head coaches. Antonio Pierce was the coach last year for the Raiders, but he's a pretty new head coach, and obviously Jim Harbaugh comes in to iron it out. So with Jim Harbaugh, I obviously trust him more than Antonio Pierce, and with this Chargers defense, I've talked about it all offseason. They've had the personnel. They were just a disaster zone last year because Brandon Staley sucks. Now Brandon Staley's gone. They literally chose as a group of players, we're not playing for you. You're not our coach anymore. Jim Harbaugh comes in here to stabilize this defense right here. And they get a great matchup against a quarterback that I simply just don't think is very good. Gardner Minshew last year did okay with an offense-first head coach. Antonio Pierce is not Shane Steichen. So I just don't believe that Gardner Minshew is going to be great in Week 1 against a revamped Chargers defense that has new energy, fresh new energy with Jim Harbaugh as that stabilizing force in this Los Angeles Chargers room. So when I look at Gardner Minshew's line on Underdog, him getting 216.5 passing yards, I'm taking the lower on this one. Not only is he on a worse offensive situation that he had last year with the Colts, he only did it in 7 out of 16 games. He only passed for more than 216 yards last year, 7 out of 16 games. On an offense-first culture, that's okay, but with this Las Vegas Raiders offense, he's not going to do it as frequently, I don't think. So if you're as bullish on him not getting 216 passing yards this week, join Underdog today using that link in the comments below. And when you use code FFN to sign up to Underdog and deposit at least $10, they will give you a 50% deposit match up to $1,000 in bonus cash. And of course, you can also take advantage of the free Travis Kelce line this week, him getting more than half a yard, which is obviously a great free line. So join Underdog today using code FN to take advantage. Now, this next tier we're dropping down to here starts out with the Vikings going over to New York to take on the Giants here. Now, the Vikings defense, I've talked about this quite a bit as well. I think just have a stronger defense than people think. Like, this defense here made personnel moves, some good, some bad. Losing Danielle Hunter, not great, but obviously going out and getting Dallas Turner, good move for the defense long term. Now, I don't think he'll make an impact right away versus the Giants, but there's two realities here. In this matchup, the Vikings have Brian Flores as their defensive coordinator, and the Giants have a bad offensive line and Daniel Jones at quarterback. They're mistake prone. They're sack prone. They're going to give turnovers and sacks up to Daniel Jones this week. So the Vikings defense at number 4 cruises to a good finish in week 1 fantasy football. Now the Saints defense is at number 5 here, and they're taking on the Carolina Panthers at home. Now again, divisional matchup, it's a little bit harder to predict this one in particular. But the Saints defense is strong. This is a strong defense led by a coach that I do not love, Dennis Allen, but does know how to coach a defense. And I also do think that with this Panthers offense, they will be better this year. I want to get that clear, and that's actually why they're lower than some may expect this week. But I do ultimately think that this offense takes a little bit of time. I think it takes time to really get to where they want to be during this season, and I don't think it starts out week 1 against a divisional opponent that's particularly strong on defense. So that's why the Saints are at number 5. Now, rounding out this tier, the Cowboys defense is at 6, and they're going to Cleveland to take on the Browns. So with the Cowboys defense, this is a loaded one right here. Because obviously Cowboys defense is a really high draft pick on ESPN. And if you drafted the Cowboys defense, you're not sitting them this week because in all likelihood, you paid up for the Cowboys defense. Side note, don't draft the defense that early. Number 2, the Cowboys defense is struggling right now at the moment because Deron Bland, a great defensive back for them, out the first 4 games with a foot injury, and their linebacking core dealing with plenty of injuries as well. So I don't love the Cowboys defense right out of the gate against Cleveland. In Cleveland this week. Now, I don't love the Browns offense at all. That's why they're still in the top 6. But the Browns do have an offensive first head coach, and Jerome Ford, I do believe, will do okay this week for the Cleveland Browns. So lower on the Cowboys than you'll probably see them in maybe even next week. But I do really like the Cowboys defense still because I do believe that they still have plenty of talent. They're led by Mike Zimmer. Al Harris is a great secondary coach. Still like the Cowboys this week. Now dropping down to our next tier here. Number 7, the Bears defense is taking on Tennessee's Titans offense at home this week. So the Bears defense, I think, is going to be an improved one this year. I think a lot of people agree with this one and have fought me on why they're not ranked higher for my all-season long rankings. Look, the Bears defense, I think, still has potential weaknesses in their secondary, and maybe they get ironed out this year, but I do believe that the Bears' front 7 is particularly strong. Now, when you look at the Tennessee Titans, they made complete shifts to offensive culture during the offseason. They got rid of Mike Vrabel, a great coach, for an offense-first head coach. They got an offensive tackle round 1. They got better weapons offensively, running back and wide receiver. There's an emphasis here to play better offensively, but their offensive line was atrocious last year, so I don't think they all of a sudden become good and hold Montez Sweat and the defensive front to like 0 or 1 sack this week. Bears have a good sack week and honestly do have a great ceiling to finish higher than this in this particular week. Now, the Buccaneers defense is at number 8 here, and they're going to take on the Washington Commanders at home. So again, very similar to the Titans where it's like, I think they ultimately do have more upside, but it's not going to be right away. I think that with Jaden Daniels, I like him a lot, and I actually think he'll surprise people. Buccaneers defense is strong, number 1, back and front end, and this Washington Commanders offense, I think, is going to take time. I think it's going to take some time to gel. So Jaden Daniels, I don't rule him out throwing a pick or 2 in this game. And I think the Buccaneers defense just might have a rookie quarterback's number in week 1, with Todd Bowles obviously running that defense right there. So Buccaneers this week, I feel are a pretty strong play. Now, number 9, the Panthers defense is here at the New Orleans Saints. Does this have anything to do with the Panthers being a good defense? Possibly so. I don't think they're particularly strong. I think the New Orleans Saints offense is weak. I just do. I've been saying this all offseason. It's gotten me under fire with some of you guys in the comment section. I get it. But the Panthers defense against the New Orleans Saints offense in a divisional matchup, which projects to be pretty low scoring, I don't like the Saints offense at all. They're stale. They made no personnel moves offensively. Essentially what they're relying on is Derek Carr to be better under Clint Kubiak. Clint Kubiak is a Kubiak, very respected family name in the NFL. I don't think that anybody can really work well with Derek Carr at this point. Derek Carr, possibly an interception or 2 this week, and just not that many points on the board. That's why the Panthers defense are a decent play at number 9 this week. Dropping down to our last tier, the Giants defense at number 10 against the Minnesota Vikings. Now, this one is actually different than the Panthers defense right here. Now, with the Giants defense, I actually think they're pretty good. I think they're going to be their strongest point of the team outside of maybe Malik Neighbors. Like, the Giants defense is really strong. They got even stronger this offseason by getting Brian Burns from the Panthers. They got Brian Burns, going to have a strong front 7. And with the Minnesota Vikings, I think they're great offensive culture. Kevin O'Connell's a great offensive coach. The reality that we've seen from Sam Darnold throughout his career is he is a guy that throws ugly interceptions. He throws really bad interceptions. So I do ultimately think that he never really got past the I'm seeing ghosts moment in his NFL career when he was a Jet. And so I think he's pretty much a lock to throw a bad pick once a week. And I kind of expect it this week. And I expect him to be under duress from that front seven with the Giants. So I think the Giants end up being a pretty decent play this week. Now at 11 here, I've got the Steelers defense at Atlanta this week because I think the Steelers are so volatile that they're a really low floor defense, but also a pretty decent upside play defense. You're going to get either 5 sacks in this game or you'll get 1. You're either going to get 2 or 3 turnovers in this game or you'll get 0. Very high variance here. Hard to know what to expect from an older defense led by Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, and Minka Fitzpatrick, who are all outside of the prime of their career or probably towards the back of it. So it's hard to predict this one, but with the Falcons, I do leave possibility for a turnover-heavy game because Kirk Cousins is 35, 36 years old coming off an Achilles tear. So I don't think they're great right away offensively. They'll take time, and I do think the Steelers could potentially capitalize on that problem right there. Now, the last defense on here, the Raiders defense at the Los Angeles Chargers this week. So with the Los Angeles Chargers, obviously their offense is a work in progress. I think everybody understands that. Justin Herbert should be a good quarterback this year, should be more efficient with Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman. But the weapons are weak. I mean, the weapons are just simply weak. They don't have Mike Williams. They don't have Keenan Allen. They don't have Austin Eckler. That might be a good thing. But they do have a collection of running backs we don't know anything about. We know about them, but we don't know who's going to be the guy and who's actually good right now. The wide receivers, we don't know who's actually good. So I think that this will be a low-scoring matchup. And I think that favors the Raiders because the Raiders, I've talked about them all offseason, very strong defense. Possibly the strongest front seven in all of football. Max Crosby, now with Christian Wilkins, is going to be a really tough one to stop. So a strong defensive front right here. If the Chargers offensive line even falters this week, the Raiders will hop on top of it. And I just think this is a low scoring game, which is why they're back here at 12. So let me know how your team was looking so far in week 1. And if you want to see the top 30 running back rankings for this week, click on this video right here.